Good afternoon. So I'm very honored to be the last speaker of the conference, of this wonderful conference. So you have seen many talks in this conference reporting on very successful cosmological simulation of galaxy formation, and they all rely heavily on subgrid models. And that's the way it is in galaxy formation. We need to have subgrid models to reproduce the observed properties. Nevertheless, I want to report here on two projects which are trying to move away from reproducing galaxy properties, but try to focus on physical processes, namely with my PhD student Michael Reeder here, a recent paper where we studied the role of magnetic fields in the context of galaxy formation, and then, if I have time, a project with György Rosdal, we're trying to study the role of radiation field by simulating self-consistently radiation field. So these two physical processes are actually implemented in the code I'm using, the Ramses code, which is a native mesh code. And actually there is an image dissolver which is quite powerful, very accurate and stable, based on the constraint transport method, and that's what we use for the project I'm going to report now. And there is also a new radiative transfer module, which is very powerful, based on the moment method, which can, as I will report, do quite a lot of things in the context of galaxy formation. And so I think that those two processes are only beginning to be included in simulation, and they are first principle processes which are usually neglected. And maybe, it's a big question mark, maybe they will replace in the future subgrid models. Okay, so first the magnetohydrodynamics of galaxy formation. So here, I will very briefly set the scene. We had a very nice introduction by Alexander Beck this morning. So clearly there is a very robust microscopic theory based on microscopic currents at the epoch of ionization, which is called the Biermann battery, which explains how in the universe we can create magnetic fields, but very, very weak magnetic fields of the order of 10 to minus 20 Gauss. And we know in nearby galaxies that the magnetic field is the order of micro-Gauss, so 14 order of magnitude larger, which is 28 order of magnitude larger in terms of magnetic energy density or pressure. So that's insanely large. And what is even scarier is that high redshift observation, like this one, for example, tell us that at high redshift, magnetic field is actually even larger, which is even harder for theories to explain how they can grow so fast. And in the current theory for magnetic field amplification, at least the old theory, is the large-scale dynamo, which is at work in grand design razor-thin disks. But we know that the universe at high redshift is not made of nice disks, it's made of messy disks with outflows. And so this is probably important at late time, but not at early time. And so historically, there are a few attempts to model galaxy formation. And those attempts have failed to get very large amplification. So now recently there is a lot of codes trying to attack magnetic field generation in the context of galaxy formation, and they all converge to the same picture, which is the picture I want to push today, which is that magnetic fields are generated through a very well-known physical process called the small-scale dynamo in high redshift galaxies. So for this, we have used a very nice laboratory, which are dwarf galaxies, the building blocks of galaxies at high redshift. And dwarf galaxies are feedback dominated. You see an example of a simulation of a dwarf galaxy, and the star formation rate is very bursty. And supernova feedback is launching giant moons. And when we solve the image D equation self-consistently, so you see here the dwarf galaxy without feedback, where you have a razor-thin disk. And here, the same dwarf galaxy with supernova feedback, which basically blows the galactic fountain, and a lot of turbulence on very large scales. And that's the key point. So when you look at the magnetic energy amplification in the no feedback case, you see a boring, very slow amplification by 2 orders of magnitude. And this is completely consistent with shear due to the inferential rotation. And actually there's a theorem, the anti-dynamo theorem, that tells you that if you have a 2D flow, like a disk, you cannot have a dynamo. On the other hand, with feedback in this giant galactic fountain, you have a very strong increase of magnetic energy, an exponential growth, typical of a dynamo. And you see the magnitude here is 15 orders of magnitude. And this is actually very difficult to get this in those simulations. So this is a clear, robust result in terms of magnetic field amplification. And so we have all the signature of the small-scale dynamo with the power spectrum of the magnetic energy that peaks at small scales, while the kinetic energy is injected at large scales. And so this is a large-scale cycle with a kinetic energy cascade from large scale to small scales, and a magnetic energy cascade from small scales back to large scales. And that's the process which pumps the energy to a very high values. So the conclusion for this first part of the talk is that we have now a very robust mechanism to explain magnetic energy amplification in the high redshift universe. And this is the actually very simple prediction we get when we reach equipartition, which is very fast. And that's exactly the model that Alexander Beck showed this morning. And so the idea is that the field reaches equipartition at high redshift, and then at low redshift, when the feedback processes are kind of cooling down, we transit to a normal regime where you have Rayserfin disks and large-scale dynamos working on previously amplified field. And so I think that in the future, we will be able to model magnetic field, and Alexander Beck gave a nice example this morning, with a very robust mechanism to generate them quickly inside galaxies. Now, I switch to the second part of the talk, which is on radiation hydrodynamics of galaxy formation. So you have seen many results from the FIRE simulation, for example, from Hopkins et al. And one key subgrid process which is included in this simulation is the effect of radiation from OB stars and how it coupled to dust. There is also a recent work with Rokroska, where we introduced the effect of dust absorption and how it could create strong feedback effects from a star-forming region. So the typical mechanism that we're modeling here is that OB stars are injecting UV radiation and they heat the gas to 10 to the 4, a few 10 to the 4 Kelvin. But each UV photon also gives a kick, gives its momentum to the gas, moving the gas a little bit. And then the UV photon are absorbed by dust and reprocessed into infrared radiation that can then multiply scatter and give more momentum. And so that's basically the three theoretical components to squeeze maximally out of the radiation feedback energy. So what we did with Yoki Rosdahl was to simulate for the first time an isolated galaxy, including radiation hydrodynamics with all these processes. So there is a dynamical effect of radiation on the gas. And you see here maps of the UV and the infrared energy densities. So this radiation comes from all the stars that are forming in the galaxy. And we solve the transport of this radiation and the coupling to the gas self-consistently. So the key point here is resolution. We have a relatively good resolution, but not enough to resolve the smallest H2 region. So the results we found is that the effect of radiation is mild, but it couples in a very interesting way with supernovae feedback. So you see here the star formation, the amount of stars formed in the simulation without absolutely no feedback. Then with supernovae only, we reduce the star formation. With radiation only, without supernovae, we reduce the same amount. But if you couple the two, and that's a very interesting result, then you get the maximal effect, and we reduce very efficiently the star formation. So this has been seen in other simulations using subgrid models, but here for the first time, we self-consistently solve the radiation coupled to the dynamics. So the byproduct of this radiation hydrodynamic simulation is that you can also do a very detailed prediction of the chemistry of hydrogen. You can predict the molecular fraction, that's a face-on view of the disk, and you can also explore the H1 distribution, especially in the fontaine of this isolated Milky Way galaxy. So those are my conclusions. Small-scale dynamos appears as a very realistic mechanism to amplify fields in relatively low-mass feedback-dominated galaxies. And the prediction, and that's a very robust prediction, is that we should reach, sorry for that, we should reach 1/10 of the equipartition in those fontaine flow in high redshift galaxies. The late time evolution will transit to a classical large-scale dynamo picture. And now the big question mark is, now that we can form the magnetic field, what will be the effect on the morphology and on the star formation inside those galaxies? And I think we are not there yet, but we are approaching, especially if it's coupled to cosmic rays. Then I think now we are entering a new era, which is the era of radiation hydrodynamics in galaxy formation. Those are very expensive simulations. but they actually could have an effect, although our first results show that the effect is not strong. And that's why we believe that actual current subgrid models are probably a bit optimistic. But we're still working on exploring the effect of radiation in other galaxies, more massive, higher redshift. What is great with those new type of simulation is that you can self-consistently predict the chemistry and connect to detailed observation predictions. And so that's it. I will leave the movie for the question.
Questions? Yes.
So you were saying about radiation pressure on dust. So this is thought to be a very important mechanism in the universe, and I know you're modeling only a single galaxy, but can you comment on how radiation pressure on dust will be in interacting galaxies?
Yes, so that's the key weakness of our paper, is that we focus on a relatively low mass galaxy, which is a nice disk. And so there are various reasons for that. Some are technical. But the key point is that the dust current density is not very high. So if you move to mergers or high-density galaxies, we hope that the effect of dust will be stronger. We expect that from analytical arguments. But the problem is that in the same time, cooling is much stronger. And star formation is also more violent. And so sometimes you lose on one hand what you hope to gain on the other. So it's unclear what will be the result.
It would be nice to see if that simulation compares with observations of the Sylvain age.
Yeah, of course.
What kind of flow rate do you have? Do you know that?
So this particular simulation, of course, has its own implementation of supernova feedback, and as you know, it's tricky. But basically, this is calibrated to self-regulate the star formation at around a few solar mass per year, and the outflow rate ends at the same level, a few solar mass per year. And the fontaine that you see is regulating the star formation. But this is, this is how we calibrate our feedback model to get that. But it's true that we could compare to, especially because we have the exact H1 content. Because the radiation field coming from the galaxy is used to do the photochemistry of hydrogen. So it's not a crude model, it's really self-consistently computed from the radiation field of the stars in the disk.
As the man has been raised, Chairman's privilege to ask the last question, which ties back to the New Year conference, and a comment that was made earlier by a really modest person here, and I won't name the name, but I remember, saying that a hydro simulation is nothing else than more complicated than SAM, because subgrid physics is an analytic equation. So are you trying to say that there is a way to go beyond that? Is it very generally for all the processes, or is that just for a subset?
So I think that, okay, so I will say something controversial.
Please do.
But I think the current model of galaxy formation, including the one I'm running, are just very expensive sums. Not much more than that. So they are sums with hydro. But most of the physics depends on subgrid models, which are not equations you're trying to discretize and solve, but sums. And that's really annoying, especially if you're a simulator. So now, those attempts that we're trying to do to explore other physical processes, they might not work, I don't know. But at least it's more interesting, in my perspective, to try to study those physical processes than trying to fit observational data. Because the only way we have to succeed is to use the subgrid models, which are not really first principle predictions.
Thank you very much, Romain. Thank you all to speakers.